When you're coming to Rome, there are some things you really need to know, like what to do and what not to do. And in today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to go over. Rome is just like any other big city, and it should be respected as such. So when you come to Rome, don't act like a tourist who doesn't care about anything. Give Rome the respect this beautiful ancient city deserves, and that means following a few rules. First, don't pay for water when you can just drink from the fountain here for free. The water in Rome is exceptionally clean and tastes very good, so don't buy bottled water. Second thing, avoid walking in the middle of the street like you're the most important thing on the planet. Here in Rome, the streets are very tight and the cars barely fit as it is, so a good rule of thumb to remember is to try to walk towards the side of a building, or if there's a sidewalk, maybe do that. Just not in the middle of the road. You don't want to get hit by a car in a foreign country, but you definitely don't want to block the road for these people who are locals. It wouldn't be fair to them, just like it wouldn't be fair to us. The third thing I'd say to avoid is not buying your tickets to certain main attractions like the Colosseum months in advance. The reason is Rome gets extremely packed, especially in 2025 for the year of Jubilee. You are going to have a very difficult time just doing a last minute ticket purchase. So again, make sure you reserve your tickets to activities and major attractions like the Colosseum way in advance. Some of these websites allow up to 3 months in advance to purchase them, and some only allow up to 1 month in advance. So when you're planning your trip to Rome, make sure you keep that in mind so you don't get stuck in a really long line and then if the tickets are sold out when you get there. Now, one of the next questions I usually get whenever I post about Rome is whether or not Rome is safe to walk alone at night. As a solo female traveler, I would say Rome is extremely safe at night. The only thing I would mention is that if you're going down a dark alley, one of those tiny little alleys in Rome, do your due diligence, keep yourself safe, keep your belongings very close to you. But if you're in a square like this one here or on a main street where there are a lot of people, you're going to feel relatively safe and you're not going to have any issues with other people so long as you're not being one of those rowdy tourists. Another thing I'd like to mention is that if you are going to be walking around in Rome at night, don't be that drunk fool screaming at the top of your lungs. There were a few on my last trip to Rome, and it really takes away the mood from being in Rome. So don't be that idiot. And at the same time, make sure that you're not dressing in a fashion that would attract certain individuals who are looking to either scam you or rob you or thieve you of your belongings. If you missed the Pantheon tour, don't get upset or stressed out. In Rome, there are so many other churches worth seeing. For example, this church I accidentally found and walked into on one of the really hot days I was there and just needed a break from the heat, and it was absolutely stunning. I can't even tell you where it is because there were quite a few of these little babies around, and they're just so wonderful to walk into. There's music in the background playing. It's very peaceful, it's very calm. And I know that a lot of people often tell you you have to wear a shawl or shorts, but in this particular location, there were people coming in from outside that were practically wearing nothing at all, so I wouldn't stress about that if I were you. Another thing I'll say not to do is when you get to the major attractions like the Pantheon or the Colosseum, keep in mind there are thousands of people visiting these places, many of whom are also tourists, and some of which are also scammers, which there is one in this video. And if you pinpoint him, let me know in the comments. But the truth is that you do need to protect your belongings even when you're at these locations and you're not online. Sometimes people will bump into you and just steal a wallet or a cell phone out of your pocket, or even take the cell phone right out of your hand. Keep in mind that when you're near the Trevi Fountain, the Pantheon, or the Spanish Steps, it is extremely crowded in these areas. So if you're looking to get some really good video or photos, it is best to come to these attractions during the early morning hours, possibly at dawn. I wouldn't come any later than 7 a.m. because the crowds do start to gather at that time. Another thing I'd say to avoid doing when you're by the major attractions is eating at the restaurants near here. The reason for this is these restaurants usually jack up their prices to get the tourists to pay more money. It's much better for you to save your money and keep your budget low if you venture outside of the tourist attractions to eat somewhere. Now, I would say venture out as far as about 20 minutes of a walk away from the major attractions, because anything closer than that, you're really looking to pay expensive prices. If you do choose to eat in a major attraction area, look for this restaurant called Rossioli. It is an absolutely amazing restaurant with great food and excellent wine. The only thing I'm going to mention is that you do need a reservation. For example, I had to book my reservation 3 months in advance, and while I was sitting there eating dinner, a couple walked in off the street trying to get a reservation, and they couldn't even get in at all. They were told they had to leave and they needed to make a reservation, but they were all booked up for like 3 or 4 months. So again, I do want to make sure you understand, when you're coming to Rome and you choose a restaurant in a major attraction area, some may actually be booked up completely and they won't have any room for walk-ins off the street. Something you definitely want to consider doing is, instead of buying tickets to concerts or going to clubs and bars with live music, is checking out any of the bridges that they have, because there are so many live bands on these bridges. So it would be a shame to waste your budget on paying for that when you could just see it for free. One of the most recommended things I think you need to do when you come to Rome is definitely hop on a train. The reason I say this is because Rome is so close to other major cities like Florence, Naples, Bari, so you don't need to be stuck in Rome. You can take a day trip on the train. The train tickets are very affordable, and you could be in Florence on the high-speed train in less than 5 hours. You know, when I went, I got to visit Tuscany, I got to do a Vespa tour, I got to tour around Florence, go to the Uffizi Gallery, and I did that with just one train ride. The important thing you need to remember is that if you're going for a day trip, you don't really need any luggage, so don't overpack for that. But if you're going to stay in Florence for a couple of days, and then from Florence you're going to Milan, you definitely want to bring your baggage with you, so that this way you have everything you need when you're there and you don't have to buy anything. I'd like to add that it's really important that you buy your train ticket ahead of time. In my situation, when I got on the train, I had already pre-ordered my tickets, and I also saved a seat. So when I got on the train, I had an incident where this woman wanted to basically tell me not to sit in my seat by stealing my seat, and then when the other woman came on board, she was looking for her seat, so I quickly had to get up and tell the woman to get out of my seat. So that is a thing, just be aware. One of the things I definitely recommend you do is renting an apartment in Rome. I know that most people like to get a hotel room for the convenience, but if you are like me and you want an authentic trip to Rome and you want to feel Rome's real vibes, then you definitely need an apartment here. I say this with love. Hotels in Rome are great and very affordable, but I felt so much more alive and like I was living there just by renting a little apartment for myself. So if you're like me and you really, really want that feeling like you're living in Rome, definitely get an apartment. With that said, I wouldn't expect to get an apartment in Rome with an elevator or on the top floor, as those are very expensive, or even with air conditioning in the bedrooms. Most of the times the air conditioning is in the main living room, while the bedrooms have fans in them. And I know that this can feel or sound uncomfortable, but I was there in July and the temperatures were like 96 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was comfortable with just a fan and the shutters closed. Another thing to keep in mind is not to bring heavy luggage or big luggage. Like I said, most of the buildings in Rome don't have elevators, and the stairwells are extremely thin. And some of them are spiraling, making it extremely difficult to take your luggage up these stairs. And for the most part, you'll be taking them up multiple flights of stairs. Lastly, if you do decide to get an apartment in Rome, ask the person renting it to you if there is a top floor terrace, and for this is so that you can explore the rooftop with the stunning views of Rome right at your fingertips. I suggest bringing a bottle of wine and a charcuterie board up there so you can sit down, relax, enjoy the stunning views. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this guide. Please subscribe and be sure to hit the notification bell button. Ciao!